And are you refreshed? Good. Now what? Further forward. Everyone sit down except the one who is walking. The one who is walking, keep coming, yes. Sometimes we point over there and they come from over there.
Good morning. All of a sudden, I'm so nervous. My heart is like pounding. Thank you very much, Jerry, for saying what you said about people really needing to pay for what they get. It's certainly resonated a lot with me.
Well, it's not so much saying that people need to pay for what they get. It is he doesn't know it, but he's talking about vibrational equivalency. In other words, the universe will yield to you through the path of least resistance, whatever it is that you want. And it does not necessarily mean that it has to be economically balanced in that sense. But someone who is pushing hard against something cannot receive benefit from something else. And usually, when someone is defiantly refusing to pay for something, as the agreement states, their vibration is in such a place that even if someone were to give it to them without payment, they would be so vibrationally out of whack that they would not receive the benefit of it.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, that very much. Anyway, I agree with that 100%. It's been my experience. I have a couple different things that I wanted to talk about. One is more personal with me and what I'm going through, but the other one, I kind of want to get it out of the way first, because I grew up in Del Mar, where you now have a home, and so I spent from 9 o'clock in the morning until sunset at the beach, and in the sun all the time growing up. And I loved the sun, and we didn't worry about skin cancer or too much exposure to the sun at all. In fact, we would rub baby oil on our skin and go bathe in the sun all day long. I'm wondering about the power of the sun to affect people and their ability. I mean, I teach yoga, and I study and read all kinds of things, not just Abraham and your teachings, but many other ones. And there are people in India that we hear about, and in other, there are a few rare people who can live without eating anything. They can live off of maybe only drinking milk. And so I have heard that the sun is actually the source of their power. And I just am curious about what is it about the sun? I mean, right now, of course, we're told that we need to avoid the sun, and we need to have sunscreen, and we need to always be aware of the danger of the sun.
Well, you're presenting quite a big conversation here, because there are several different perspectives that we could dive into this. First, let's talk about the damaging rays of the sun, or so they are being expressed from so many these days. And we want to remind you, as we were beginning here today, that there is life inside the vortex and life outside the vortex. And we are not saying that if you're inside the vortex that you could then present Clorox to someone in their martini and they would thrive anyway. What we are saying is that when you begin approaching life from inside the vortex, you are tuned to the higher frequency and to the higher consciousness who knows what you are reaching for, and through the path of least resistance you would always be guided to the behavior that would be most beneficial for the outcome that you seek. What happens with so many people, as you were sort of describing, that people sometimes go to great extremes, and they often go to great extremes from outside the vortex where they're not even aware that they're going to great extremes. In other words, they subvert their own guidance system and then are not effectively utilizing their guidance system, and then they get negative outcomes, and then they start looking for the causation of the negative outcome. And it's easy to point at, well, it was this, or it was this, or it was the sun, or it was, but what we want to continually say is that if you are tending to your vibration, then you will be inspired to the behavior that will yield to you through the path of most allowance or the crack of least resistance, the behavior, the ideas, the rendezvous with elements, the rendezvous with food, the rendezvous with nutrients, the rendezvous with the sun, the rendezvous with everything that is most beneficial to you. When you take the guidance of alignment out of the equation and you attempt to guide behavior based upon manifestational outcome, you get bogus results, because there are a lot of people doing a lot of really unwise things from outside the vortex. And so then how do you determine, well, what was the reason for that negative manifestation? Was it because they walked in front of a train? Or was it because they lay on the beach with olive oil all over their body, or baby oil all over their body, or whatever? And we say you have to go back to the root of the vibration from which the inspiration for the behavior from which the negative creation came, in order to really understand the full picture. And so we are never advocates of taking an element that is part of the process and either praising it or condemning it. We would far rather that you put your attention upon your alignment where you are inspired to the behavior. So when we say, if you spend a good deal of time in the vortex and you're aware when you're not there, and you make the majority of your decisions from inside the vortex, you can have everything that you're wanting. The universe will guide you to the outcome that you want within the guidelines that you have been putting there. In other words, as we said earlier, you don't have to sacrifice one thing for another. Now, as far as where the well-being or the source of well-being comes from, to assign it to the sun is like saying that the spark plug is what makes your car run. Okay. In other words, it's a part of the process. Right. It's a part of the process, and an important part of the process. So much that takes place on your planet is benefited by exposure to the sunlight. But the sun is not the source of energy. It's not the source of vibration. It's not that which man wants to call God. It is part of the process, part of the cooperative components that have been gathered together for the experience of life in this universe and on this planet. Did we get there for you?
Yes, just fine.